Battea City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Brian Ramsden. We do have stairs there. All righty, you have fun giving the talk.
Hi, good morning everybody. As Ren said, my name is Brian Ramsden and I'm the General Manager of Lawyers for Expats Thailand. We are a dedicated and registered law firm, and my job within the company as the General Manager of Foreign Affairs is to liaise with our foreign clients. Just a little bit of background of how this all came about. I was a property developer in Khon Kaen some 8 years ago, and before I started doing it, I wanted to make sure that my clients were safe and legal, and that we was following the law and everything else. I studied when I was 19 to be a barrister in the UK, chose not to go down that path. I went into commercial business, came to Thailand 20 years ago and lost a lot of money in property, a lot of money, the same as most people. Went back, made some more, and then come back. But 8 years ago, this all started. And the first thing that I did is I started to look at the property laws relating to foreigners and how we could secure people's property investment before building them their houses. And as a result of that, I realised that there were lots of pitfalls. I'd lost property myself some 20 years ago by not following the law properly, and I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to happen to any of our clients. So what I did is I wrote all the contracts out, put the solutions together, and then thought I'd better get this legally checked out. So I took a trip to Bangkok and I see no less than 11 different law firms. I had put into the contracts things to really slip them up, things that I knew couldn't happen, but indeed not one of them picked up on them things. And indeed every single one advocated for me to set up companies for the clients, which is illegal, with nominees, and I chose not to do that. By sheer fluke or divine intervention, whatever you may believe, I was round a hospital bed in Khon Kaen visiting a friend of mine, and I bumped into Kanopich Ukwit-Sadarsi, who is the head of our legal division. She's lawyer and barrister for over 20 years, and she's married to a judge, and she's a very, very lovely lady. I was taken back with her kindness to begin with, and as a result of that, I got a meeting, gave her all the documents that I'd already got approved by 11 law firms from Bangkok, and she got out one of them pens that you flick from blue, black, green and red to red, and there was no less than 14 things in there that couldn't be right, so she got me at that. So she became our lawyer, and within 4 to 6 months we were talking, and we had the idea together to set up Lawyers for Expats Thailand. Started out as a one-man band company, boutique law firm in Khon Kaen. We now cover the whole of Thailand, and indeed, in addition to that, we've just become an international law firm too. We specialise in finding solutions, following the law, to help foreigners live in Thailand legally and safely. We do property law, business law, estate planning, matrimonial. We do the LTR and DTV visas as well, but majority of what we do and what I specialise in is the property division, and also in estate planning and wills. We are the property law specialists in Thailand. Everything that we do follows the law and secures property investment for foreigners. Have you invested into property in Thailand? Well, the answer is probably, most people in the room have probably done that, or maybe thinking of doing it. Well, the ways that people normally do it is through a company, or in their wife's name, or leasehold through a developer, or in a friend's wife's name. That's the way that people normally invest into property in Thailand. The use of a nominee to buy land or landed property. This was widely practiced in the past and has been accepted until now. So what's changed? Around the room there's people that may have listened to their lawyer and said, oh, you set it up with a company, use our nominees. And that might have been years ago, and everything's been fine. And everything is fine, because that was done then. But what's changed to make this practice not acceptable now? And how could what you've done in the past affect the present? That's what we're going to talk about today. And just lay out what's happened. So if you understand what's changed in the marketplace, why have all of a sudden, are they, the DSI been set up? Why are they looking for nominees? Why are they looking at companies that foreigners have set up to buy land? Why are they doing that? And if you understand what's behind it, it will make more sense. The three common forms of nominees for buying property by foreigners. The first one, using a company. It's illegal and not safe. It's been widely used using the staff of law firms and accountants. As I just mentioned, in the past, this was a very common practice, and unfortunately, there are still law firms and accountants and developers that are still advocating this practice. It is illegal. It has always been illegal. But up until now, nothing was done about it. So the government themselves are to blame because they allowed it to go on for years and years and years. And in a minute, we're going to talk about what's changed to make that. So what's the dangers of using a company? Why is it dangerous? Why is it illegal? The other way is using a friend's wife. It's illegal and not safe. There are things that can go wrong with that, and I'll be talking about them in a second. And using a girlfriend, it's illegal and not safe. So first of all, using a company. What's illegal about setting up a company? Well, the law clearly states, as it has always stated, it is illegal for a foreigner to set up a company for the sole purpose of owning property in Thailand. Well, what's the interpretation of sole purpose? If the company isn't already in incorporation, if it isn't paying taxes, if it hasn't got income in and out, therefore it's been set up solely for the purchase of the property, and that is an illegal practice. The next thing is for a foreigner to be on a company. We're going to do a Q&A after. Is that okay? Actually, go on. I'm happy to receive. Okay. Let's explain first of all. There's property, which is landed property, okay, and a condo. Okay, condo is different. Now, with condos, there are two types. There's a freehold that you can buy, or if in the building 49% is over 49% is owned by. So up to 49% can be owned by foreigners. Therefore, you can have the freehold. If not, it has to be leasehold. Okay, you can only do leasehold. Okay, So setting up a company in that instance is illegal because it's circumnavigating the law. And many people and many agents have done that. So they've got a building that's already got its 49% quota, and they still want to sell the rest of the condos, so they sell them leasehold, and they set up a company and put the foreigner on the company. It's completely illegal, and there are consequences. There hasn't been up until now, and we'll talk. I'm not here today to do any scaremongering, by the way. I'm going to explain the different levels of, and we're going to look at the risk assessment of your situation. Okay, so not everybody that's done this is at risk, high risk, so we'll talk about that. But in terms of property, you're talking about villas and houses as being landed property and condos and apartments, okay? No problem. And if anyone wants to say anything, it's fine. Even though we're going to have a Q&A, I'm quite happy to answer any questions as we go along. So the use of a company. The other thing with the company is obviously the nominee. For a Thai company to be a Thai company, there's different things there's criteria that has to be met, and we're going to talk a bit later about that. But one of the things is it has to be 51% shareholding by a Thai. Now, people think that that's just a bit of ink on a paper, and it's just a shareholding. But there's more to it. The 51% shareholding includes 51% investment. It also includes 51% of the dividends from the company being paid to the Thai as well. They have to be real Thai investors, which 99.99% of all the companies that are operating with foreigners in Thailand, especially for property, are not so. So that's the scary part. The law firms, the accountants, they've all been guilty of setting these things up illegally because they thought that this day would never happen. They never thought that, and they didn't think into the future of what could happen and did the risk assessment for the clients. By the way, we have never ever set a company up for a client to purchase property. Not one, ever, or to buy land. The use of a friend's wife. This is quite common practice. In fact, Saturday morning, I was in the Pullman Hotel in Khon Kaen, and a guy from the Netherlands came to see me, distraught. And two things have happened. His current girlfriend has run off with his Chinook, with his logbook for his motorbike and his car, and left him in the lurch. But more importantly, the second thing is, about 8 years ago, he purchased a property through a very close friend of him. He thought was a close friend, known the guy 20 years, and they did it through the guy's wife. This guy and his wife have now split up. Nothing's been put in place. 8.5 million baht, and in fact, he then went back to the guy, and the guy pulled a gun out on him. Greed and avarice, the love of money, can do all sorts of things, but it's not safe. It's not safe to do that. Obviously, the first thing somebody should have done in this situation is to have either a lease, a usufruct, or a superficies agreement on the land when they built it. In addition, I'll talk about them different things in a minute. In addition to that, a will should have been put in place, and also a memorandum of agreement, albeit it still is technically illegal. And here's the thing that I explained to the guy on Saturday morning. He cannot now go into the police station, he cannot go to court and say, I've done an illegal action and I now want help from the legal system. It's black and white. You follow the law, you have the full support of the law. If you step outside of the law, then you've got no protection whatsoever. So it's very important that everything that's done follows the law to the T. And that's what we've emphasised, and we've built the philosophy of the company on to make sure that that happens so people are safe. Using a girlfriend. Well, 8 years ago when the company was called 8 Villas that started to do the development, many of the guys that were coming to me to build their villas, their pool villas, they were doing it through their girlfriend's name because they couldn't do it in their own name. So we put together a solution, and it's quite interesting what happened with this, because the solution then was to have a memorandum of agreement in place, but we first said to them, don't do it. But if they insisted on doing it, then okay. But we said, don't do it. It's not the, it's going to upset the apple cart. The equilibrium of the relationship is not going to be good. The moment you have an argument, she'll say, there's the door, it's my house, get out. It's not good. But we put together a solution where there was a memorandum of agreement. In addition to that, which have been tried and tested, and up until now it's all been good, and we haven't lost any of them. We also put a will together, and wills in Thailand are very, very important. It's very important that you have your UK or American will, or wherever you're from, in your own country. But it's also important that you have a will here. I'm not talking about this today, but it's very important, as I can talk another time. But more importantly, if you're married to a Thai, or if you have a Thai girlfriend and you've bought property through her, it's very important that you have a will, especially if you're not married, because in fact, you're not in line of inheritance. And even people that are married don't realise that the land isn't part of the matrimonial property. In addition to that, if you're married, if your wife took your surname, you might be asked to go, when she goes to register the land, you might be asked to go and sign some papers at the land office. And it's all in Thai and you don't know what you've been asked to sign. Well, I can tell you what you've been asked to sign. You've just signed all your rights away on that property in divorce or in death. That's what you've signed away. And the first thing that comes out in a divorce case, the other side bring out this document from the land office that says that they've given all their rights away. Now, the good news is we still win against them because we can prove that the money has come from the guy. Now, that was pre what's going on now. What's going on with the government because of the revenue department, which I'm going to talk about, how this all came about has changed everything. So it's very, very important that people have all the documentation in place. Now, the memorandum of agreement, even after signing that document, we've put solutions together for people because we make a memorandum of agreement that says, even though we've signed at the land office to say, signing it all away, it was only done because the land office wouldn't allow us to transfer the property. But in fact, all the money came from the foreigner, my partner or my husband, from his private funds. But in fact, this property is matrimonial property. Very important document to have. Very important. We do it by form of a memorandum of agreement. But using the girlfriend, I was talking about the wills. And 7 3/4 years ago, after we'd put all the solutions together, I sat down with Lawyer Pook, who's my business partner. I said to her, right, I want to know what document or what part of the solution is the weakest part. What's the weakest link? And she said, the will. And I went, what? How can the will be the weakest link? And this is going to get you thinking. So she said, well, Brian, even though they make the will to say that they're making their partner the administrator and executor of the property, they can go out tomorrow to another law firm and we don't even know to say that they've made a new will. And we will not know unless it's too late. Until they die and we find out then. And then the poor guys, lost everything. So this didn't bide well with me. And I sat up for a number of nights. At that point in time, probably with a bottle of Jack Daniels, because that's how my lifestyle was at that time. I don't drink anymore. I haven't drunk for over 3.5 years. I found God, or he found me. Another story, another time. But I share it with people. And I sat up and I thought, there's got to be a way, there's got to be a way. And I was doing flow charts and diagrams and searching everything. And I had an epiphany, as people call it, or a light bulb moment, as I call it. And the next morning I called Pook and I said, what if we did this? She went, how did you think of that? And I went, well, it just come to me. And what we do with our wills is we have a unique system where, and it's so simple, it's ridiculous. It's so simple. So in the wording of the will, it says, for revocation or any changes, all three originals have to come together. So we do the will in triplicate. We video the will being signed, the witnessing that we do, so and we ask questions, nobody's forcing you to do this, so it makes the will solid, so it can't be contested. And we do it in English and we do it in Thai. In addition to that, for any change or revocation, all three originals. So one original goes into an envelope, it's sealed, then we put a very special seal over it, and then we get the testator to sign over the seal. They have one copy, their partner has one, and we retain the other one in a bond. Gone out, bonded safe. And in 7 3/4 years, we've had 3 cases where the girl that's made the will has then gone out and made a new one and has died. All 3 occasions were from motorbike accidents. And it wasn't until afterwards that we found out that there was indeed another will. So we had to go to court with it. But with our system, we won all 3 cases. So we know that it's tried and tested and we know that it works. And it's very, very important that this is, it's a very important part because it's the future. It's your future. So if from a girlfriend, and this is the other thing that people don't think about, by doing it for a friend's wife or a girlfriend or even your own wife, if the person gets into debt and the creditors come after them, they will indeed come after your property and you could lose your property. Now, with everything that we put in place, they won't be able to kick you out because you'll have a lifetime usufruct with it. But it will mean that you and your wife will never ever be able to sell that property. It also means that if your wife goes before you and you decide that you don't want to be living in this property anymore for its location or just because of good memories that's upsetting you, you won't be able to move and you're stuck. So it's very important to consider that with the solutions that, the solution that you choose to use, you have to think about what happens if the person dies, what happens if they get into debt, and very important, and what happens if you split up as well. Okay, is there any questions on this part at the moment? Okay, fine. Why are these not safe? Well, the use of a company. The DSI investigation. We'll be talking about who the DSI are and what investigation that they could do for a company in a minute. Nominees and what would happen if the nominees, what happens in a divorce, sorry, I can't read my own thing, happen if the nominee, if the nominee divorces. What people don't take into consideration is that they use nominees in law firms or accountant firms. And in some instances that I've spoken with people, they've never actually ever met the person. They don't even know who they are. They don't even know their background or their situation. They don't know if they're married. Now, if they're married, their husband, and in fact, here's a live situation. We were sitting having breakfast, me and Ren, this morning, and I had a phone call from Lawyer Pook, my business partner. My wife today is in Phuket, transferring some land, or buying some land actually. But they wouldn't allow her to do it, even though it's from a company that I'm not on. They still wanted me to sign it. So from here, I go to Phuket to go and sign that. And so therefore, for it to be a legally binding, enforceable contract, the husband has to sign it. So do you know that your nominee's husband or wife has actually agreed to let them be a nominee? If not, it's completely void anyway. Now, and with this being void, the legal term is void ab initio, which means it's over before it began. It never happened. So if that agreement's never happened, you've given all your money away for what? Who actually owns the house? You don't own your own property if it's in a company name. The company owns it. You own 49% shares of the company. The reason why it's not safe are these reasons. It's breaking the law. And indeed, also, what a lot of the law firms and accountants did and still do is there's a saying in England, out of the fat and into the fryer, meaning they take you out of trouble and put you into more trouble. So what they do to make you feel better and to give you confidence, they say, we'll make you a director of the company. So if you've got control of the company, all good. It's not good at all. Because if you're the sole director of a company, legally you need a work permit. So there's another law being broken. In addition to that, if you're the sole director of a company, it's no longer a Thai company. It's actually a foreign and controlled company and needs a foreign business license. So there's so many laws that are being broken. The very first case that happened in October, you can go onto our website, www.lawyersforexpatsthailand.com. Go onto the blogs. I do quite frequent blogs, and we do different blogs on Facebook every couple of days. The majority of them are about property law. Well, the very first case that came up in October regarding nominees, the shocking thing that the judge did was, what do you think the sentence was for the foreigner and for the Thai? They gave them 10 years imprisonment. 10 years. Now, what they did is, because the foreigners and the Thais put their hands up, gave the property over, and gave the company and all its money and assets over, they reduced it to 5 years with a 2-year suspended sentence. They lost everything. This is actually precedented. This is what's already happened. So when people say, oh no, nothing really could happen, it's already happened. 350 billion bahts worth of properties were confiscated in Phuket just a few weeks ago. a task force called the DSI have been set up specifically. All they do all day long is to look at companies that have foreigner shareholders or directors that owns property. Now, with the advent of AI, things have become very easy for them because they have an AI program. They go to the DBD database and all that they put in is foreigner, property, company and location. Within 3 or 4 seconds, they have a list of every single company that owns property that has a foreigner shareholder or has a foreigner director. It's that simple. That's how easy it is to do. And I'm going to talk to you about in a minute how easy it is for them to find out that, in fact, there's a nominee being used as well. So yeah, it is very, very, very dangerous. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody in this room that's got a company that has bought property is in grave danger. As I said before, I'm not here to scaremonger, and I'm going to talk about the different levels of danger and where yours fits in, so you know. Okay, I'm not here to be a scaremonger, to drum up business. That's not what we're here to do. All right, that's not what we're here. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. I want to tell you the truth so you understand what the situation is, and then you know and you can make informed decisions about what you do. The use of a friend's wife. Well, I've already just spoken about that, what happened to this poor guy on Saturday. They can die if there's not a will. So if you currently have property that you've bought for a friend's wife, the first thing that you need is a memorandum of agreement put in place. You need them to give you a registered usufruct or superficies or lease on the land. In addition to that, you need a will. And if they're married, you need their partner to sign to give permission for them to enter into these agreements. Otherwise, they are void. Very, very important. But you can secure yourself very easily. It's not hard. So if you're in that situation right now, you can secure yourself. It's a bit more difficult if you want a company, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The use of a girlfriend, well, we've already discussed what can go wrong and the dangers there are. You know, what can you do? Well, if you've already done this for your girlfriend's name or a partner's name, then the first thing is, again, memorandum of agreement, registered usufruct, and a will from them. And more importantly, with the will, is to have a solution in place to make sure that they can't change it without you knowing. Very important. That's where we come in. So what has changed? Why all of a sudden is everyone scared about the fact of their property investment? Why all of a sudden is my property investment that I did 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago under investigation, or is there a problem for me? What's really going on? The Revenue Department and the DSI. We all know about the Revenue Department, and you've probably had numerous talks from people about Thailand's taxation system, yes? Yeah? Yep, okay. So how did it all come about? How did this investigation onto companies, how did this can of worms and Pandora's box get opened? It started out with something very simple. The Revenue Department had a think tank, and it was at the end of 22, beginning of 23. And they sat down to discuss where they believed Thailand's Revenue Department, or Thailand in itself, was losing the most money. And in the top 5 things was mentioned when foreigners set up a company to buy land or landed property. How on hell How could this possibly be? And when I first read it, I laughed. I didn't, and then it was only a few moments later that I realised. Let me explain. When a foreigner uses a company to buy a property, they're on the company. When they decide to sell it, all that they do is they come off the company and they put the new foreigner on. There's no trip to the land office. There's no 2% transfer fee. There's no 1% withholding tax. There's no 0.5% stamp duty. And there's no 3.3% business tax paid. That equates to billions upon billions of baht per year. So it's all about money. This is how it came about. So they went, we're going to wipe it out. We're going to stop this from happening. And that is what they're trying to do, and that they are doing. So they set up a specific department called the Department of Special Investigations, the DSI. If you follow the news, you'll see they're swooping everywhere. They're doing all sorts. They're just about to go to Kopangan. I can never pronounce it right. My wife always pulls me up. With my East End accent, I call it Kopangan, but I always get it wrong. They're currently in Phuket massively. In fact, one of the things that they do now, if a company, and first-hand experience, my wife is in the land department in Phuket right now. I'm going there for tomorrow morning to make the signatures. But when a company now needs or wants to buy land, this is what happens. If there's a foreigner on that company, they will investigate and they will interrogate the Thai person, and they want to see a year's worth of bank statements, and they will go through it to see where the money's come from. And the Thai person has got to prove that this is their money. If it isn't, and it's from the foreigner, they will go to prison for at least 1 year. That's how stringent it is now. And they will not let the transfer happen. This is how strict it is. And indeed as well, what they will do is they will then call in the foreigner. And the foreigner will face deportation. That is what is happening. It's that strict. So this is the real life. This is what's really happening now. This is for new ones, not for the people that have already purchased. This is if you went to go to buy land or landed property in a Thai, in a company name right now. Okay? And my wife has been through all of this morning. The DSI was set up to investigate the use of nominees. It's so simple for them to find it with the use of AI. And what they actually do is they key in from the DBD database, and this is how the people that have already got in the system can get caught. So if they decide that they're going to, let's say, come to Pattaya, they haven't been to Pattaya yet, okay? And we've got I can't give you a heads up that they're on their way here. That's not what I'm saying in any way, shape or form. And they've got a lot of work to do in the places like Phuket, Phangan, Koh Samui. They're going to be tied up for some time. But they will get round to doing different places in the country. Or what will happen is this. If the law firm that gets caught, because that's what they're going after. They're going after the law firms and the accountants that are using nominees. And you've got a girl in the office who's a nominee on 100 different companies. She owns 100 different houses, or even 1,000 in some cases, we've seen. How can she, on 15,000 baht a month, afford to have all that property? Well, she can't. She's a nominee. And it's this easy for them to find, and this is how they find it. On the DBD database, the Thai shareholders have to put their telephone number. So they have the telephone number of the girl that's in the office, and they phone her up. And they say, this is the DSI. We know that you're a nominee. Now we're going to give you the opportunity with an amnesty to give up who you're doing this for, and you will go on your walk free. And they'll go blab, 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 blab. Or if they're working for a law firm or an accountant's and they feel under pressure, they won't say anything. So what they then do is they interview them. And this is what's opened up a massive can of worms for the formation of companies as well. So they call them in, and they have a meeting. Say, well, look, we know that you're a nominee, but you're saying you're not. Well, part of the changes that happened with the revenue department, Thailand signed up to a CRS system, called CRS, the Central Reporting System. They can clearly see every transaction that goes through our banks, through everybody's bank, okay, in 114 countries around the world. And they will look at the date of incorporation of the company. And if the 51%, if it's a 2 million baht share company, share capital company, if 1,020,000 was not sitting in the Thai person's bank on that day, they've got them. It's a nominee situation. And that is how they find it. It's that simple. They look at the date of incorporation of the company. If the Thai person didn't have the money sitting in the bank, then it's obviously a nominee. Because the law clearly states, and by the way, when a company is now being set up, they want to see the money. They have to prove that they've got the money. The Thai person has to prove. So it's changed. This wasn't in play before, but this law has always been, but they weren't policing it. So this is how they can find if it's illegal. Now they're not just looking for, the DSI are not just looking for the odd person that's got a house for a company. They're looking at the bigger picture. They're looking at the law firms that have got hundreds, if not thousands, of nominee situations. That's who they're going after. Now, if you're part of that scenario, i.e. your law firm has done this practice and used their staff as nominees, that's how you can get caught up in it. Okay? They're not coming after you, they're going after them. But that's how you could get caught up with it. So that's where the danger lies. That's where the danger lies. Yeah, I've already mentioned the 51%. Changes at the land office. If registering land or land and house in a company name with a foreigner on, then get ready to be grilled and questioned, as I've just already explained. My own wife this morning. The land office has to report to the DSI every single company that's buying or registering land, and they will investigate every single one now. Everyone. So what will be done about it? So the first round, I've already explained what happened in court. There's ridiculous. 10 years. But now the law, what they've done in the law, it's between 1 and 3 years for the nominee. Confiscation of the property. The foreigner could face deportation or even imprisonment. Now, don't be alarmed. They are looking at the ones that have been done in the last 3 years, first of all. Unless a law firm that's currently still doing this in the last 3 years happens to be the law firm that supplied your solution with the same nominee. That's the only way that if you've had property in this way for some time, you can get caught up in it. They're not coming after you. They're not coming after your property or your company. They're going after a bigger picture. So it's only if you get caught up in that. Well, Lawyers for Expats Thailand, every single solution that we do follows the law. That's what we're about, and we're about making sure that our clients are safe. The law says that foreigners can own condos if it's under the 49%. They can lease condos if it's over. The law says that a foreigner can lease land. There are 4 types of lease. Sapin Sif, a regular lease, a superficies, or a usufruct. And you can have a registered lease with your name on the back on the land. Now, a superficies is really good because, in fact, the superficies gives you more rights. It gives you a 30-year lease on the land for you to do anything you wish and to build upon it. And everything that's on top of the land, you have the legal ownership of. This is the law. This has always been the law. Why have people been circumnavigating it? Because law firms have been giving people the wrong advice. That's what it boils down to. You know, you're not expected to know the law. You go to a law firm and you expect them to tell you the truth. That's what you would expect. But this practice has been so widely used that it just become the norm because they didn't think that this day would come. 5 years ago, a large law firm in Bangkok, nameless, absolutely ripped into me. He's talking out of his backside, this day will never come. But they've had to eat their words because this day has come. We saw this coming. We knew what would happen. It only took one change in legislation or something like what happened with the Revenue Department to unravel everything that's been going on. Our solutions do not circumnavigate the law. There's no need for foreigners to go on a company. No need at all. There's no nominees used. The land can be split from the house. So if you've got a piece of land that you want to get a lease on, the land therefore is separate because the house hasn't been built yet. So the house is registered separately and therefore you can own the house. But you can do the same thing with a superficies because what it does, it gives you the right on the land and it also gives you the ownership rights of the house that's built on it. With the correct legal solution, you can resell your property at any time as well and receive all the funds, even though you don't own the land. With the correct legal solution, you can do that. So why is there any need to circumnavigate the law? There isn't. There's no need whatsoever. We can make a one-on-one meeting with you guys. Obviously, we're going to have a Q&A now. I'm looking forward to that to see what feedback from you guys. But you can reach out to us at any time at Lawyers for Expats Thailand, regarding anything, anything at all. We offer a free consultation. We don't make clients, we make friends. And we're not like a conventional law firm that charges you by the second or by the minute. We don't do that. We don't charge people at all, even though they may have to speak to us 10, 20 times. There's no charge. It's only when we physically do some work and put a solution together for people or have to represent them that we charge. And before we do that, we put together a letter of engagement outlining all the costs and we are very competitively priced as well, even though we have some unique solutions that are really strong. Thank you for listening. Let's open the floor for Q&A. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very enlightening. We went through this. You talked about the buyer, the nominees, the lawyers, the accountants, but what about the responsibility of the estate agent who steered us in this direction? What is their accountability?
Okay. First of all, very, very good question. We're just about to open up Thailand's first national association for developers and real estate agents to try to clean this marketplace up. Because what you've got to understand is that real estate agents don't have any training, they don't have any qualifications, and they don't have any legal knowledge whatsoever. And the only thing that they're interested in is making money. So take with a pinch of salt anything that a real estate agent says to you. Now, there are some really good real estate agents. I'm not knocking them all, but there's no regulation at the moment. I'll give you an example. I was in Wahine the other week, and this particular real estate agent, she called me up. She said, Brian, I want you to go there for a guy, Ian and Gina, lovely people. And I went to see him. The developer is happy for me to use this as a live situation. His name is Peter, and they're called, what are they called? White Beach Villas. And he's already done one development, and he's doing his second development now, 38 villas. And we do due diligence. It's not the real estate agent's job to do the due diligence. Now, we offer an initial due diligence free of charge. Other law firms charge. We do it free of charge. And the reason we do it free of charge, this is our commitment to our clients and to this industry. We really want to make a difference to it. So the due diligence that we provide free of charge is very simple, but very effective. When somebody goes, and we tell people, you go along with an estate agent to go and view a property. What you then do is, if it's a development, I want the company name, and we want a copy of their sales agreement, and we want to see the land title front and back. And we also want to see their developer's license. 90% of the developers in Thailand are not developers. They are builders pretending to be developers. Development's license is licensed, and most of them work outside of the law. What's the difference between a developer and having a developer's license? On a piece of land, one shanut can only be split 9 times in 3 years. Therefore, a lot of these so-called developers, the building permit that they've got is probably under the table, illegal, because they're doing 40 houses. They can't do 40 houses. If they don't have a developer's license, the law says anything over 10 houses, they must have a developer's license. But people don't know this. And these real estate agents don't care, they just want their commission. So we will do the due diligence. The first thing that we'll do is we'll get the ID card of the seller, we'll get a copy of the land title front and back. And just with that information, we can find out quite a lot. So first of all, if it's a company, we go onto the DBD and we see if they've got a developer's license, we see what the share capital is. Got one guy who's in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed. He was just about to buy in Phuket last week, and they wanted him to put down a 10 million baht deposit. 10 million baht. 42 houses being built, no developer's license, 2 million baht share capital for the company. hold on a second. How many people are they going to take for 10 million baht? I had one recently in Koh Samui, and it was a Slovakian developer. And when we did the due diligence for the client, we actually found out this. They didn't have a developer's license, which a lot of them don't. They were using a nominee for their 51% share of the company. And in fact, they didn't own the land that they were selling to 35 people. They had a lease on it for 30 years. Now, okay, that could be done, but there's no guarantee that the people would be able to get, and I'll talk about the guarantees on leases in a minute, any renewal or anything else. But more importantly, I dug further, and I found out that they'd only paid a year of the lease. So they were going to take all the money and then go, and they were in cahoots with the guy that really owned the land. And then they would have, all the customers would have paid for the houses to be built, then they've got that to then sell on to somebody else. So this is what can happen. So on the due diligence, we look at the developer, the seller. Is the seller the legal owner of the land? 9 times out of 10, that isn't the case. So how can somebody that doesn't own something be selling it to you? Number one. Number two, we see the physical, the title. Is it a Shonot, or is it a Norsor Sam, or is it Norsor Sam Gore? Well, unless it's a Norsor Sam Gore, a Sapin Sif, or a Shonot, you as a foreigner cannot get any security on it. So it can only be them 3 land titles, and we check that. We also check, because the things that we've seen will make your hair curl. We've seen people trying to sell a piece of land with a Shonot, and obviously the foreigner doesn't know, the laws, and they can't read Thai, and it's not even the Shonot that they're being shown isn't even the land that they're standing by. So we check that out, and we make sure. So we say to the client, "Can you send us satellite coordinates right now?" And that is that's quite common. In addition to that, we can see the actual sizing of the land to make sure that what they're being offered is the same. With a development, what a lot of the time happens is we find that the developer hasn't even split the land yet, because they've got a developer's license. So the property that somebody's buying, or even bought in some cases, doesn't even exist. They're sharing a plot, and this one that I was telling you about, the 10 million baht, once we started to question them, what actually happened, we could see what they were doing. They were making plots and putting 5 people on each one. Can you imagine what would happen if there was a discrepancy or a lawsuit? It would be an absolute mess. That's why it's really important to have the proper due diligence. Then we flip over the land title, and so we scan down, and it's got the history of who's bought it. And what most law firms do is they go straight to the end just to see if that person with the ID matches. And yes, that's important. Yep, they're the legal owner. Or if there's a mortgage outstanding, very important. But there's something else in the middle of all of that that could be really, really important. And is there an inheritance problem? So we scan through the history on the back of the land title, and we see whether or not, by the way, we do all of this for free. This is what we do for free. This is our commitment. We will see if, in fact, the person that's selling it received it by way of a court order. Now, the court order could be 2 things. It could either be from a divorce, or it could be from inheritance. Now, if it's inheritance, there's something really important that can happen. Let me tell you something happened 5 years ago. A guy with his Thai wife went to a big law firm in Bangkok. done the due diligence, paid them 50,000 baht to do the due diligence. They then went and they paid another 100,000 baht for the solution and everything else, so 150,000 baht. And they bought the property. They bought the land and they built their dream home on it. 6.5 million baht in building. They built their nice pool villa. They're living in luxury. 2 weeks after the villa was completed, knock on the door, ding dong. It's the brothers of the guy that they bought the land off of. And they were then taken to court and they lost their property. Okay? There's a 5 years period after somebody dies where they can challenge the will. So what we do to combat that, if we see that there's there could be an inheritance problem within the sales agreement, we make everybody in line of inheritance sign to say that they're not going to make a claim. It's these things that make us different from other law firms. We're about the detail.
One last question.
Okay, it's very short, because I hope not so many people here are really involved. What you're also describing is already going to the criminal side. What is criminal in our, if you're selling something which is not existing, it's also criminal in our countries. So there the culture is not sort of, but this was just a remark. Now the question is, okay, you say, apparently this is all over now with the nominees, if this is true what you said. And then we have to lease, yeah? Okay, we're leasing then. And what happened then? You said then the house is ours on the leased ground, yes? The house belongs to us. And then we want to sell the lease. Or we sell the house. Let's say we sell the house. What happened? Someone else buying the house. What happened to the lease, which is on my name? Will the new owner of the house automatically get the lease? Or he has to ask? What is the situation there?
The landowner that gives you the lease, in the agreement that you've got, and there is something else that's just happened, the Supreme Court has just stepped in and just ruled that there is no perpetual right of renewalship on the lease. There's no guarantee, it's not enforceable that you can have a 30 plus 30 plus 30, which has been promised to maybe some of you from the people that sold you your house, especially the developers. This is what they've been doing. We've even got stories already of developers in Hua Hin that are sending letters out saying, because of the change in the law, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do this, so they're going to take the house back at the end of the lease. Okay? The answer to your question, to do this properly, there has to be a complete solution put in place. Okay? A complete solution. What we've done is we've consulted with the powers that be, and in fact I've just, under the guidance of Pook, just wrote a brand new lease that's just been approved, and we have the sole on this, and it's been approved to be used and registered at the land office. And it answers this question. So there's no guarantee of renewal. And I'll explain to you why. The law says there's no perpetual right of renewalship binding on the heir of the lessor. Meaning, if I was Thai and I gave you a lease, 30, 30, 30, and I die, well, you can still live on the land, but you can't sue my beneficiaries. It's not legally binding for your renewal. So when it comes to the end of that, they can say off, and they own your house. So people need to be aware of this. We've combated this, and we have something that we've just got approved. And instead of being a renewal, we write it in that at any time the foreigner can ask for the lease to be cancelled, and at which time they will be offered a new 30-year term lease. So this way, and it's been approved, and we can do this. So it's all about renewal and new. Very important. In law, there's some very thin things. But you can. So in fact, what's important is the person giving you the lease, in your sales agreement and in your memorandum of agreement with them, in the solution and in a binding legal agreement, it gives you the right to sell. Now, if the house is split from the land, or you've got superficies, or that, it gives you the option to sell it, and the lessor, the person that owns the land, gives you in writing that they will provide a new lease under the same terms as they're giving you. So yes, that's the answer to that. Thank you.
Big round of applause for an
Thank you,
amazing
everyone.
talk. Don't go anywhere. Firstly, Brian, thank you so much flying into Konkan. It was, I'm sure many of us were just about hanging on every word you were saying. And you'll be hanging around for a while after the meeting. So he gives free one-on-ones, so keep him here and ask him lots of questions. A small token of our appreciation for your talk. It was wonderful, and we hope to get you to give other talks in the future.